When the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan a year ago, they promised to be more inclusive. Many of the Taliban's pledges concerned respecting the rights of women, a change in stance from their rule 20 years prior. On the anniversary of their return to power, we look at which promises the Taliban have kept and which they have broken. Promise: civil rights will be respected. Status: broken. The Taliban have reneged on their commitment to ensure civil society activists can work without interference. The group has forcibly dispersed anti-government protests and detained rights defenders, journalists, and social media activists for criticizing its hardline policies. Promise: girls will be allowed to attend school. Status: broken. The Taliban have refused to allow most girls to resume secondary school education, making Afghanistan the only country in the world where teenage girls are unable to attend school. The United Nations, Western governments worldwide, and even some Islamic nations have roundly criticized this decision. Promise: women will be allowed to work. Status: broken. UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet said in July that many Afghan women can no longer find employment in the country, and that attacks have grown under Taliban rule against female human rights defenders, journalists, and lawyers. Promise: women can be active in society within the, quote, framework of Islam. Status: broken. The Taliban have ordered women to not only cover their heads in public but cover their faces as well, and have increasingly placed strict restrictions on their movements. The UN Human Rights Council passed a resolution in July that called on the Taliban to reverse practices against women that are making them, quote, invisible in society. Promise: peace will be established in Afghanistan. Status: kept. The Taliban's return to power has largely ended years of hostilities and war-related casualties in Afghanistan. Aid groups say they can now conduct humanitarian work in areas that were inaccessible during the conflict. Promise: the government will not interfere with the delivery of humanitarian aid. Status: partially kept. UN Aid Chief Martin Griffiths told the Security Council in June that the Taliban are disrupting the delivery of aid. He said the country's formal banking system often blocks transfers from aid groups and that national and local authorities are increasingly seeking to play a role in the selection of the beneficiaries of aid. Promise: no retribution will be taken against soldiers and former government officials. Status: partially kept. Human Rights Watch reported in November on, quote, revenge killings by Taliban forces against former Afghan security forces. In the Taliban's first 2.5 months in power, the rights group documented 100 summary executions and disappearances in just 4 Afghan provinces. The situation has since improved, however, and many former senior government officials have returned from self-exile in foreign countries, taking advantage of a general amnesty the Taliban announced. Promise: there will be a, quote, inclusive Islamic government. Status: broken. When the Taliban announced its cabinet in September, it did not include any other political factions or women. Acting Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi argued in December that the country's government is inclusive because it includes representatives from different ethnicities, including Tajiks, Balochs, Turkmens, Nuristanis, and Uzbeks. Promise: Afghanistan will not be used to launch attacks against other nations. Status: partially kept. No known large-scale attacks have been coordinated from Afghan soil since the latest Taliban takeover. However, recent United Nations assessments say the Islamist rulers have not cut ties to Al-Qaeda, the group it sheltered before and after the September 11, 2001 attacks, leading the United States to invade Afghanistan. An American drone strike on July 31st killed Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in his safe house in the heart of the Afghan capital, Kabul. It raised questions about Taliban counterterrorism pledges and dealt a serious blow to the hardline group's efforts to seek international legitimacy to its rule in Kabul and removal of economic sanctions. Promise: the narcotics industry will be shut down. Status: partially kept. The Taliban began destroying poppy fields after announcing in April they would eradicate the country's production of opium and heroin. What is not known is how many poppies were planted this season and how many hectares have been destroyed. The crop has been lucrative for many impoverished farmers across the country, and the Taliban previously made millions off it, taxing farmers and middlemen.